Now let us begin with exercises and let us discuss some MCQs. First question. Removing barriers or restrictions set up by the government is called A. Free trade, B. Investment, C. Liberalization, D. Preferential trade. The answer is C. Liberalization. So, liberalization involves the process of removing some kind of restriction set up by the government, right? Liberalization leads to free trade. What is investment? Investment is the kind of money you are putting into build land or buy land or build a certain factory or etc. You're investing into something thinking that you have a hope in the future that it might give you some kind of profit in return. What exactly is preferential trade? It is trade in only preferred goods, only a few goods and not all the goods. So preferential trade is done by understanding between two or more countries that these are the goods that is only required for trade, not every kind of good, right? Let's move on to the next one. Rapid integration or interconnection between countries is known as A. Urbanization, B. Globalization, C. Liberalization, D. Socialization. The answer is B. Globalization. This is the hardcore definition of what globalization is. That is, globalization means rapid integration or interconnection between two or more countries. Liberalization is removal of trade barriers by the government. Urbanization is increase in the urban areas of the country. It may come due to industrialization. Socialization is nothing got to do with Indian economy itself. Which one of the following Indian industries has been hit hard by globalization? A. IT, that is information technology. B. Toy making. C. Jute. D. Cement. The answer is B. Toy making. We have discussed this in the case study relating to the Chinese imports to India. IT industry has grown because of globalization, jute and cement as well. Which of the following organizations lays stress on liberalization of foreign trade and foreign investment? A. International Labour Organization, B. World Trade Organization, C. International Monetary Fund, and D. World Bank. The answer is B. WTO, World Trade Organization. This organization lays stress on liberalization of foreign trade and investment. ILO is that United Nations body that overlooks the kind of different labor policies that are taken over by the different countries. IMF, that is International Monetary Fund, and World Bank, they are the financial institutions that come under the United Nations and they take up the different financial policies of the countries. Which of the following is not a feature of a multinational company? A. It owns or controls production in more than one nation. B. It sets up factories where it is close to the markets. C. It organizes production in many complex ways. D. It employs labor only from its own country. So please be cautious about the question here. They are asking you which of the following is not a feature, which means majority of the options are attest to the features of the multinational company, and we need to find out which of the option is not a feature. The answer is it employs labor only from its own country. This is definitely not a feature because it can also employ labor from other countries. The other three options, that is A, B, C, are features of an MNC. Tax on imports is an example of A, terms of trade, B, collateral, C, foreign trade, D, trade barriers. The answer is D, trade barriers. Definitely, taxing import, that is adding extra value to the import, is a kind of restriction into it coming into our country, because it becomes more expensive than the products that are produced domestically in our country. So it's kind of a restriction, and hence it is answer is trade barriers. Terms of trade and collateral are something that is related to the banking chapter and the money chapter that we have seen in the previous classes. Foreign trade is the import and the export. So the correct answer is D, trade barriers. What was the main channel connecting countries in the past? A, labor, B, religion, C, trade, D, technology. This is a very factual question, and there is this is a pinpoint answer. The answer is C, trade. Trade was the main channel that was connecting different countries in the past. Like I've told you, when India was under the colonial rule of British, as an example. MNCs keep in mind certain factors before setting up production. Identify the incorrect option from those choices that are given below. A, availability of cheap skilled and unskilled labor. B, proximity to markets. C, presence of many local competitors. D, favorable government policies. So please find the incorrect option, that is the wrong option from the four options that are given below. The correct answer is C, presence of many local competitors. In which year did the government decide to remove barriers on foreign trade and investment in India? A, 1990, B, 1991, C, 1992, D, 1993. Again, a very factual question that does not require a lot of memory, right? So this was the same year where liberalization happened, that is the government deciding to remove barriers on foreign trade and investment. So what exactly is this year? The answer has to be B, 1991. Fill in the blanks. You have a passage right in front of you and you need to fill in the blanks. So let us go ahead with this. First, I will be reading out the passage to you and then helping you out to fill the correct option. Indian buyers have a greater choice of goods than they did 2 decades back. This is closely associated with the process of dash. Markets in India are selling goods produced in many countries. This means there is increasing dash with other countries. Moreover, the rising number of brands that we see in the markets might be produced by MNCs in India. MNCs are investing in India because of the dash. While consumers have more choices in the market, the effect of rising dash and dash has meant greater dash among the producers. So please fill in the blanks with the appropriate words. Let us start now. Indian buyers have a great choice of goods than what they did 2 decades back. This is closely associated with the process of globalization, right? Markets in India are selling goods produced in many other countries. This means there is increasing dash trade and commerce with other countries. Moreover, The rising number of brands that we see in the markets might be produced by MNCs in India. MNCs are investing in India because of the low cost of production that is there in India. While consumers have more choices in the market, the effect of rising demand and purchasing capacity, that is affordability, has meant greater competition among different producers of the world. Let us see a match the following kind of question. We have two columns here. Let us see. MNCs buy at cheap rates from small producers. So, what exactly, which sector does this kind of statement belong to? It belongs to the garments, footwear, and the sports items. Quotas and taxes on imports are used to regulate trade. So, which term does this statement correlate to? The quotas and taxes on imports are used to regulate trade is ultimately called as trade barriers. Indian companies who have invested abroad, which are these companies? They are the Tata Motors, Infosys and the Ranbaxy. Information technology has helped in spreading of production of services through which of the following? Through call centers. Several MNCs have invested in setting up factories in India for this sector's production. And what exactly is this sector? It is the automobile sector, as we've discussed about the Ford Motors in India. So, what do you understand about globalization? Explain it in your own words. So, like I've told you, it refers to the process of integrating countries' economies with other economies of the different countries under different conditions of trade, money, and people moving across borders. So, basically, it involves increase in international trade, that is import and export, capital and financial flows in the form of investments, human migration, that is people moving from one country to another for better jobs, better education, and a better income. Why do developed countries want developing countries to liberalize their trade and investment? What do you think the developing countries demand in return? So, they want developing countries to liberalize trade and investment so that their MNCs can set up factories in cheaper ways, right? And enhance profits for themselves ultimately with reduced cost of production and same selling price. So, in my personal opinion, developing countries should demand in return for some kind of protection for their domestic producers in their countries against these foreign competitors as imports. Also, charges in the form of restrictions or taxes should be levied on MNCs that are looking to set up offices and factories in the developing nations for their kind of production. The impact of globalization has not been uniform. Explain this statement. Globalization has not had an equal impact on all sectors, and let us go on to explain this particular statement. So, it has benefited only the better educated, the better skilled, and the better trained people in cities. And it has definitely benefited the industrial and the service sectors, and it has not benefited the primary or the agricultural sector. So it has benefited large MNCs from the developed countries at the cost of the domestic producers in the developing countries. So the competition from the foreign produced imports have affected the domestic producers, and the kind of sectors that have been affected are those of batteries, capacitors, plastics, toys, tires, dairy products, and vegetable oils. Globalization will continue in the future. Can you imagine what the world would be like 20 years from now? Give reasons for your answer. So the globe would have undergone a positive transformation characterized by healthy competition between countries, improved production efficiency, increased volume of output, increased volume of revenue, and increased employment. Definitely, all these will lead to better incomes and higher living standards and greater access to information and computer technology. So, these are the factors which favor globalization, that is human resource availability, that is people with better jobs, better education and better skills, both in terms of quantity and quality, and major countries which have many resources and a direct industrial base, increasing number of entrepreneurs who utilize their kind of ideas and knowledge and come up with a product or a good. And when the domestic market is expanding, so that there is a kind of healthy competition with that is coming from the imports through foreign producers.